Scott, great to see you. Welcome to the Leaders Who Care series.
Hey, thank you so much for inviting me. It's good to see you again, Mark.
No, it's our pleasure. I think it'll people will see real clearly why you deserve to be on a Leaders Who Care series. So no pressure, just
Right.
just go for it. But this is a series about recognizing people and organizations that are bringing forth the mindset that leaders in their businesses can actually do much better when they're doing good at the same time.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot to show in what you've done and what's coming ahead too. So let's start, if you would, by briefly introducing yourself. Not really about the business yet, but who you are, where you're from, where you are now,
Sure.
family, special hobbies, maybe something you've never told anybody else in the world and you'll want to reveal it now. I mean, you could do that too.
I might hold that one until the next one because I want to give people something to look forward to on the something Scott's never revealed. But so I'm Scott McGregor. I am a director in our People and Communities organization here at Cisco. I'm a North Carolina native, born and raised right outside of Fayetteville, North Carolina, on land that my grandfather made sure that all of his family got land in that area down there. And yeah, so happy to be here.
With respect to growing up and being a kid and teenager, were you like a reader and a studier? Were you like the guy that put up lemonade stands and selling all sorts of stuff? Did you play music? Did you do sports? What were you like?
Yeah, so not a big studier. I've actually got some issues with reading, so reading was tough for me coming up as a kid. But I did love music, and I still do. I've been playing the piano since I was about 6.
All right.
And played in churches and everything around in the area. Decent enough with sports. I like basketball, baseball. I ran track in high school, played a little bit of basketball in high school as well. Love to watch television, so I a lot of Star Trek, and
Cool.
that was one of my favorite shows.
Well, you remember Captain Kirk?
I do.
He's from my hometown. William Shatner's from Montreal.
Is he really?
Yeah, my
Wow.
hometown, and he's amazing. He's like over 90 now, I think, and going strong.
He's still going strong.
Where no man has gone before.
That's right. That's right.
Well, tell us about your journey. Listen to me, at least a little bit. Starting at you were in business at North Carolina Central U. Then your bachelor's and master's in religious studies at Tripp Institute and Seminary, I believe. Right. What intrigued you onto that path?
Well, I chose business because some folks said it was easy. I never really thought I was going to go to college or less only complete college, and it was quite a struggle, as a matter of fact. But the religion piece, I'm also a minister, so it was an area that I wanted to really focus in. If I was going to teach people and talk to people about this area, I wanted to make sure I had education in that background. But what it also showed me is that, if you take care of people, then you can take care of the business. And there's probably very few belief systems out there that don't kind of that allow you to place something else above yourself. And when you do that, then it also helps you take care of people and make sure people are being looked after and different things. So I think the two together, just kind of understanding the fundamentals of business, but really just understanding that at the end of the day, it's about the people who run that business that are the most important. So that's kind of what put me on that path.
No, it's brilliant. Did you have any conflict then finding yourself in sales at like tech and related companies?
No, not at all. What I wanted was something that, I didn't have like, technical skills and that sort of thing. So I wanted something that I knew I could put my time and effort into, that I could also get a good benefit from. And sales was an area that I discovered almost by accident. And but once I saw that if I put my time and effort in there, I could actually make more money with commissions and whatnot. It was a natural fit for me.
Yeah, I love that because sales is often looked at as you're selling type of thing versus actually engaging with someone and finding out what their needs are and all that. So I'm assuming that's the road you took sales wise.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely.
Um, Obviously we've been talking about a lot, and we'll get into it from Fifth Element. We were actually founded on the premise that leaders and businesses can do way better when they're doing good. I mean, you yourself personally and Cisco, from everything I've seen over the years, obviously really believe in it and believed in it before it was like a thing to believe in type of deal. And because you've been engaging in a lot of social and environmental initiatives, two related questions to that. So you started in sales and training at Cisco. What evolved then to where you became, the early in career and diversity lead, taking advantage of your background to that point?
Yeah. What was interesting is that even as I moved into this new role, managing early in career folks that were just learning, how to get into sales and technology sales, my leaders came to me and said, we noticed that our pipeline is not as diverse as it needs to be. So is there a way for you to help us kind of figure out, one, how to get it more diverse and what schools we should be focused on? So even as I was, managing the young people in the sales program, I was also going out and visiting colleges about a 4-hour driving radius from North Carolina, and got my pitch together and said, hey, I'm here from Cisco. I want to see how we can build a better relationship with you all. So doing that work and helping to build those relationships gave me a foundation in working with those schools. And as we started moving, further into that program, I said, boy, wouldn't it be nice if we could have like a company-wide mentorship program? And a good friend of mine who worked for the company had already run a really nice mentoring program called Campus Career Link. And so I talked to her, I said, man, it'd be good if we could do another program like that. So right before the pandemic, we kind of reached out, got about 80 HBCU grads that were at Cisco, and started to pair them up with folks from Jackson State, Grambling, Howard, schools like that. But because of the pandemic, a lot of those students unfortunately had to return back home. And what that did is it caused an issue in terms of the follow through with some of with the students. But what I noticed is that even as we were kind of in the pandemic, there were still some of the folks that stayed in touch with the individuals that they were mentoring and coaching. And so right along, and this is always interesting, Mark, because I've always found that when I stayed on one path, there was always an opportunity kind of running right along parallel to that. And I got invited to sit down with our CEO, Chuck Robbins, and about 20 other African-American and Black employees, just to talk about the experience of working at Cisco. And out of that came our social justice actions in 2020. And of course, because I was also running that other parallel program, when they said, do we have a way to support these schools, I was tapped to kind of come in and help put a plan together with a group of other folks on how to drive the work. So it just kind of, one just fell right into the other. I tell people I haven't had to apply for a role at Cisco in the last 13 years or so, because it was always, work that I was doing and relationships that I had built that just kind of opened the door for the next opportunity.
Yeah, it's funny. It circles back to what you say about just taking care of people. And because I was gonna ask you, maybe you can expand it a little bit. It led you to getting the opportunity to be the director of people and communities. Because of it seems you weren't just in sales, you were in people, basically. And that's why I love what you said about that. What does that entail, especially in your role, director of people and communities at the time, especially in terms of DEI and social justice? What does that mean?
Well, what it does is it puts me right next to people who are doing fantastic work in that area. I had a chance to sit in on a 2-day session with our brand new Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer and her team. And what was cool about it is almost everyone in that room were people that I had worked with in the past, and we always kind of daydream about, boy, if we ever got into a position where we could work together, here are all the great things that we could do. Cool. And here we are, several years later, where several of those folks are directors and senior directors that are able to, manage large blocks of work So that social impact, which is the area that I focus on, is kind of like the external lens, if you will, to diversity, inclusion, and equity, which is the internal piece. And so we just kind of sit and say, hey, how can we partner? Can we collaborate together?
Yeah, it so fits as a model that people at Cisco recognized that it wasn't just only we're doing something good, not that that wouldn't be enough, but it really is good for business. It really is good for attracting talent and keeping talent, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, what we're finding is a lot of people, regardless of how long they've been in the industry, are really interested in companies that are putting people first or focusing on people. And part of Cisco's purpose is powering an inclusive future for all. So you have to think about the inclusive part, which is make sure that everybody gets their fair share of opportunities out there, and they all are communities, businesses, partners, you name it. So people want to be a part of companies like that, and it's really cool that Cisco really started leaning in that direction kind of before what I call the flashpoint of 2020. You know, they didn't need to see the world on fire to decide, hey, we need to do something here. So Chuck and Fran and other leaders at the company really deserve a lot of credit for that.
Yeah, I'm sure you've heard this, but there's been so many studies about what fills people's hearts and souls the most is belonging.
Yeah.
And I had a Deloitte partner telling me years ago when I was like 22 or 23, new at Deloitte. He said, Mark, brilliance is simple. And he left the room. And I'm sitting there, what am I doing with that? And I kind of got it on the minute he said it, but I didn't really get it until I learned. And, kind of leads me to this. The fourth industrial revolution, as you know, is about AI and technology, et cetera, et cetera. But to say the fifth really now is about humanity and purpose and stuff, and partly one of the reasons for our firm's name, actually. So, as you know, we're very engaged in workforce development, especially for untapped talent. When skill training is provided that's needed by corporates and other businesses more than ever. College is great, and that's important for that, but it's also not for everybody. There's a lot of untapped talent that doesn't go to college as well, that needs skills. And the great thing about it is, again, the corporates and businesses need it. So we're super excited about that. We're all working together around Fusion Cyber in this whole area, which offers certified cybersecurity education, focus on diversity, supporting HBCUs to effectively create a talent bridge or a cyber talent pipeline. Well, maybe I'll speak French because my English is not doing really well right now. A cyber talent pipeline, because there's thousands of open jobs and opportunities in the future. So with that long intro, can you share your passion, Cisco's commitment on this, what's happening now, how it aligns with your mission, and the importance of having valued partnerships in that type of thing?
Absolutely. I mean, we know that all the numbers around the need for cybersecurity talent. And what we wanted to do was figure out a way to place that talent in areas that really have been struggling either economically or socially or other things along that line. And as you look at HBCUs in a lot of those areas, about 52, 53 of the 102 HBCUs sit in 10 of the poorest states in the country. So we thought, could we leverage hybrid work, which allows us to do what we're doing right now, sitting and having a conversation in your home and my home? And could we bring the job training to the individuals who sometimes either can't leave or won't leave, or unable to leave their local community? That also is kind of like the brain drain, right? So a lot of times you'd go into some of the areas, young people would get their education, and the first thing you would say is, hey, you got to move to fill in the blank, Atlanta or Los Angeles or San Jose or New York or somewhere like that. But if we could bring the skills into that community, imagine if you have a state, and we use South Carolina for an example, which is this place that we're working with, where the average salary $35,000, $40,000. But if we can bring 65, 70, $80,000 jobs to that area without all of the other, building a plant and all the other things that you have to do that. If we could start to, see those jobs with those people in those communities, not only could we help meet the need for cybersecurity talent, but we could also do almost like a reverse economic development model, if you will, and bring those much needed high value jobs into a lot of those communities.
Yeah, it's brilliant because you're 100% right. Sometimes companies would put an office building in wherever because people were there, a lot of money, a lot of costs, etc. And you can actually, what is it, maybe one of the positive benefits, if there's one of a pandemic, is remote was starting, but it put it on steroids that you could do things remotely, and it really gives, not to state the obvious, it really gives dignity and self-esteem and security and impacts family and the whole bit, by doing that. So with that said, can you describe then how it impacts business results, how it impacts attracting and keeping talent to do that, what it does for the brand while you're changing people's lives? And we always say, for example, there's, when people are at work, they go home and their spouse or partner, when it goes home, and there's two things that happen. They either say, man, work sucked, I'm tired, I don't know what we're doing there, there's no purpose, I'm not, give me a beer, I'm going to sit on the sofa. And the kids hear that, and the spouse or partner. Or, hey, you guys, come sit down and we'll have a bite to eat. I got to tell you what happened at work today. We're doing this and this, and now we're getting involved in education. We're getting involved in food or whatever, and the kids hear that. So can you share how that impacts the business and talent, as I said, but also people's lives all the way through to family and community?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you think about the word has been out that diverse companies just perform better from a business perspective. We know that. And of course, it's not just identity diversity, not just Black people or Hispanic people or women, but just people with different backgrounds and things along that line. And when you start to find folks that have say maybe Black people with a military background or women with different backgrounds, you can start to have that kind of textured diversity, as I'm calling it. It really brings a richness to the experience. So we're hopeful that, as we talk about the inclusive future for all, we can start to identify, those populations that traditionally get left out of conversations about cybersecurity. And we're able to get them involved in the conversation early, get them the training they need, but more importantly, and with the partnerships we have with Fusion Cyber and then another nonprofit, Capital Business Development Associates up in DC. Now there's mentors who are in that cybersecurity space that can come alongside those students and support them as they're going through the training. So we're hoping that, with that support, but then also having people who, might have one background, partnered with someone with a different background. Not only can they learn from each other, but you can then start to really see diversity come alive in terms of the benefit to both parties.
Yeah, it's I grew up in Montreal, and it was like no one ever said we had to have diversity. It was almost like we just wanted it, and it actually felt really good. I'm not saying Montreal was perfect, but it happened a lot. And you're so right. It's obviously giving equal opportunity to Black, Asian, whatever. But there's so many other elements of diversity that I'm glad you raised also, and giving people the chance to learn something that they may not have even thought they'd ever get into.
Right. I
think is pretty cool. What experiences have you seen, like with Denmark Technical or whatnot, about some of the young people, how they feel going through it and after they've completed?
Well, we're just getting into having that first group come through. But what we're seeing with some of the folks that are preparing themselves for the interview process, I mean, they're just excited because, here are areas that they never thought they could be exposed to. And now they're coming to the end of their training. And now they're, getting ready to sit for their exam. And they're thinking, man, this is happening, and I'm part of it. So we want to have more of those stories, and I'll be happy. Maybe if you invite me back, we can talk about what some of those individual stories look like. But just overall, and it's not just young people. There's also folks who have spent, 10, 15, 20 years in another industry who are now looking to make that change and just didn't know, how to, get into that role. So this is allowing them a chance to do that.
Well, that's great because, like I said, in LA, we always have them wanting more for a sequel. So we'll have them all come back and talk about it too. It's a great point you raised because you have veterans, you have young people, but you also have people that are older that maybe just want to do some next chapter, or people that maybe they need to make money to keep going. And now you're kind of giving a diversity of people opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, the more we can expose people, the more not only does it benefit them, but then they can also tell people, hey, look, I was doing this. Now I'm in this area of IT that's growing. I'm getting paid well, and maybe start to encourage more people to kind of, stretch themselves a bit and take advantage of opportunities they may not normally see.
So this could even impact moms at home that have been at home doing amazing stuff, taking care of kids.
Absolutely.
Remember how it used to be impossible to get a job after you're a mom? Sure. They'll ask you, like, what did you do? And man, they did more than most people, actually. So it would impact that way too, I would think, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we want to be able to open this field up to folks of a wide variety of backgrounds. And obviously, those folks who maybe had to step out of the workforce, stay home, take care of families, now it's an opportunity for them to kind of re-enter the workplace. What better way than to come in with a set of skills that will put them on the forefront of this war for talent and be the people that folks are fighting over to get to work in their companies. So I couldn't think of a better group of folks.
Yeah, a couple more questions before I do that is, we're very aligned towards sustainable development goals, and SDG 17 is our favorite, if you can have a favorite, on partnerships. Explain, why it's so important, why you're partnering with us, with Fusion Cyber and others, Denmark Techno, why it's so important to have partners, even though it sounds obvious.
No, thank you for that. My team is actually called Inclusive Partnerships. So I focus on building partnerships inside the company. So working with our sales organization, our technical assistance organization, our customer success organization, marketing, talent, but then also looking out into to the community and seeing what nonprofit partners, schools, municipalities we need to build these partnerships with. We don't get the sort of success we're looking for if we try to go it alone. And we want to make sure that we show the power of these collaborations and not just kind of talk about it, but get in there and mix it up a little bit. And maybe it's not great and perfect the first time out, but then that's how you learn. And then as you rinse and repeat, you get better and better. So we're big on partnering. Obviously, Cisco's sales model is based on partnership and our resale partners. So I just brought that same mindset into the work that we're doing here. And by the way, modeled a lot of the work that we do on the UN Office of Partnerships, which talks about the need to bring in different partners to get this work done at a global scale.
Yeah, that's interesting to learn. When we do, part of our business is bringing top talent to our clients to help them continue the impact and whatnot. A lot of the question I ask by mostly women and minorities is, I can do the job, but am I really going to be able to get in there on a significant project, learn, achieve, maybe hit an obstacle, but overcome it and really be involved, not just do, if you will, my job type of thing. Thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, critical thinking and being able to problem solve is like one of the number one skills that you hear when folks say, well, tell me, what does it take to be successful working in the information technology industry? So coming up with a solution that you do in collaboration with other folks that have different backgrounds, different skill sets, I mean, that's just foundational to success in our business. So I love the fact that folks who thought they may not be able to do those things now suddenly find themselves kind of in the middle of this really wonderful chaos of different people with different backgrounds trying to get things figured out, but then landing on a solution that's not doesn't just work once, but is sustainable and repeatable. I mean, that's really cool.
It's super cool. So last couple of questions. we were launched on about 5 years ago on International Women's Day, and I'm doing a lot in diversity, equity, inclusion, women, etc. Describe your journey a little bit as a Black man. You're a Black man, right?
I am. Thank you for
It's
asking and noticing.
Yeah, I thought so. So you're a Black man in business in the tech sector. How did you navigate and thrive to be included, to be engaged, to be in a position to do amazing initiatives?
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple of ways that things that I would just tell people to make sure you're doing. And these are things that I would love to say that I've always had this list of 4 things and I was able to do this and, have all this fantastic success. But it was actually trial and error that I discovered these things. But the first thing is that you need to do what you are super interested in, what you have passion around. And, trying to help people and be in a place to help folks is something I've always had. That was always important to me. So that was one. The second thing is to align myself with people that had the same passions, but maybe different skill sets. So the whole iron sharpening iron and that sort of thing. And being, with this crew of folks that, you kind of sit down and daydream about, changing things. The third thing is having a set of leaders that believe in you, but also believe in where you're trying to go. And will kind of, run interference for you to make sure that you are achieving those things. But then the fourth thing is make sure anything you do, it has to be measurable. I'm very nervous about any programs or things that have really kind of squishy metrics, or you're not sure how to measure the impact of it. So always make sure what you're doing is something that has hard numbers that you can measure. That gives you an opportunity to kind of go back and assess where you might be making some mistakes and tighten it up and then jump back in there again. So it's not something that I would say that as a Black man I did because I'm Black, but because I knew I needed to also land success early in most things that I was doing. I may not get the grace to screw up
Right.
as much as other folks.
Right.
So I just tended to say, look, I'm just going to swing for the fences, every time I get in up to bat. We'll probably strike out, a couple of times, but if I'm intentional, hopefully I'll get some base hits and maybe even a home run.
I think you've hit a couple of home runs. Don't know so far. So I definitely would give you that. No, that's brilliant, and it just shows so much in what you're doing right now in giving people opportunities to get into things that probably many of them never thought they'd have a shot at getting into. So congrats on that. Last few years have been kind of weird for a lot of people, including the pandemic. And I remember one client in 2021, he told me, he said, Mark, the year 2020, it was the year that flew by slowly, he said. And I thought, what a crazy comment, but I could really relate to it. With all of that's happened, what are you most grateful for and what are you most hopeful for?
I think I'm grateful for the fact that our company, kept its head down. It really focused on its people. It focused on its business. But we're also very intentional about a lot of the D&I goals that we set. Here we are almost 3 years later, and we're still as committed, if not more, to those goals. And putting myself in a place to where I was able to help drive some of those, I'm very appreciative of that. I think what I'm hopeful for too is that there's a term that our chief diversity officer shared with us and another coworker of mine. She went and found the word. It's called extinction burst. And in like when you're talking about therapy, things that you should stop doing, you stop doing them, but they sometimes can return, but with more ferocity. So it's almost like it gets worse before it gets better. And I think about that and I look around and I hear some of the news and some of the commentary that's coming from the political commentary and whatnot. And if you're not careful, you would almost think we're going backwards. Oh my God, it's like, But then if you think about it from that extinction burst, this is kind of what's supposed to happen. As we start to force people to have conversations they don't want to have about issues that they don't want to talk about at work, with people they don't want to talk to, then a lot of these things are going to really reassert themselves, and it's going to almost feel like we're trying to wind the clock backwards. But if you think about the fact that in using that extinction burst way of looking at things, that's what's supposed to happen. People are supposed to dig their heels in more. People are supposed to get even more adamant about their points of view. But that, if I think about it, that also means that we may be on our way out of some of these discussions, and people still having to feel like they have to talk about their worth, in the workplace, outside the workplace, in the public square, and places like that. So I think if there's anything I'm hopeful for, even as we hear all these negative things that are coming, is I believe that we are coming around the other side of some of these things.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I think it's such an important point that you raised, that if we expect that to happen, maybe it's a good thing. And all I can think about is sometimes when you've persuaded somebody about maybe it should be different, once they get persuaded, they're standing up for it more than the other person.
Right. Absolutely. I think, ally, that's part of allyship. Once you understand how these things work, and the people who need to be the ones that are the most vocal, supporters of things, are the people who probably got the most benefit in the system as it was set up.
Right.
So we always talk about, whose voice is not being heard. And again, I'm borrowing very, very much from our chief diversity officer because she's brilliant, but she says that, we need to start talking about whose voice isn't being heard as we're having these discussions. And sometimes the voice that isn't heard is the voice that's always been talking. And, some of us might think we don't want to hear from that guy. He's always, but we can't come up with the right solutions unless everyone's voice is being heard, every person's viewpoint is being honored and listened to and tried to and understood. So yeah, that's I'm still struggle with that one. But again, when I talk about great leaders at our company and people who can really set the stage, in addition to my leader Brian Tippins, who runs social impact, Gloria Goins, who runs diversity, just has a wealth of knowledge in this area. So she's really helping us kind of grow and move forward in a new and interesting way.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant, and I love the fact that you use the word knowledge, because knowledge out of that voice can be so fantastic, and if it's not heard, we all miss out on it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I think I'm pretty clear that you are a leader who cares. So congratulations. If I had a star to give you right now, I would just put a Pam right on there. And but no, in all seriousness, I really appreciate you participating and sharing all that experiences and knowledge, and keep making a difference and being a leader who cares.
I appreciate it. Thank you for the invitation.